Why, hello, it's Robbie from Southern California, and today I'm working in my garden. No videos, no nothing, I'm just working in my garden. Well, I thought so, and as I was working, I started thinking, look at this, look at the strawberries. Oh, we're not doing strawberries, it's full of strawberries. There's something I talk about off and on, and I think it renders having a full little video just on this subject. Warmth, spring, plants bursting into life and growing vegetables for us. This is something I've been observing, and I've known about it, but you don't think about it, is look at my brand new rainbow garden. I'm amazed. I looked at the video from a month ago, there was nothing here, and now look at this. I got tons of broccoli. I've got zucchini growing. The first zucchini was no good, look at that, because it was all females. Now that there's males, we're getting full zucchini. I've got zucchini on there. Tomatoes, lettuce, mustard, onions are growing, garlic, all kinds of stuff. Why is this all growing, and yet I'm hearing a lot of people are still cool in Southern California? We are cool. We haven't gone really in so many days over 70 degrees. We're usually a lot warmer than we are right now. They've talked about it on the news a bit. Well, my plants don't know that. These plants don't know that. Let's not tell them. What's going on, and I'm going to walk you over to show you something else, is these totes, you watched me set these totes up, are all brand new. They were set up, about 2 months ago, I started setting them up one tote at a time, where I put in my sticks. I'll put in whatever I've got, branches from the yard. I try to keep the branches on the bottom so we get a good water flow out of the holes. Again, every container needs to drain. If for any reason it's not draining, you better watch it, because if it gets too much water on the bottom and it just sits, you'll have a problem. So really, every container needs to drain. It doesn't matter if you leave an inch of water, but you can't have it fill it with water. But going back to this, you've watched me fill them up, and then with rotted leaves from the garden, brown ones, yellow ones, pieces of wood, toilet paper rolls, shredded paper, kitchen scraps, which is no more than other stuff you find in your garden, which is greens, but it's also stuff you find in the fridge. And I've been loading this up because, well, the truth is I can't fill all this up at one time. Sure, I could go out and buy potting soil, and if I could afford it, absolutely, go ahead and load it up with potting soil. But I make my own. So one by one, I filled them up, and one by one, I started planting. My zucchini are massive. My broccoli is growing broccoli. Everything's growing here, but not everywhere else. So what I'm doing is I'm going to change a few little things that I didn't do last year. Not a big change, just a little change. I'm taking what I have learned and observed here in cool weather, and I'm going to manipulate and trick my seeds and let it think that Mother Nature warmed everything up. So here I'm setting up another tote. I wasn't going to set up a tote here because it's kind of like really on the end, and I want to do crafts and stuff here and go live with you guys and everything, but it can be temporary. I can ditch it. So what I've done is I've filled this up just like I do every other tote, and I'm actually going to do one more over there, at least for now. So I'm going to have those two. But I'm not going to plant in there. That's not to say I won't change my mind later. But I'm not going to go plant in there. I'm going to use this as a nursery. A nursery for starting seeds. So I don't have to deal with working in the house starting a lot of seeds in plastic bags. Now those I still like because I start them in plastic bags, as I did this one. And then I move them. This is a special tomato. It's a delicious. Into cups, and then I cater to them that way. I mean, there's still more in here. Look at that. And then you can move it where you want. Look at the beautiful root system on that. You can move them where you want. But look at all this. You've heard me talk about this. Look at all the tomatoes. Look at the beautiful thick stems on here. That all grew from seeds. Just me squishing them in there. There's a lot of stuff like that growing around here. But with the reason it's growing like that, so healthy and thick, and all the seeds want to grow, is because all the fresh compost in there is breaking down. And as it's breaking down, all the microbes are in there and the earthworms. It's creating a very gentle heat. This is not hot composting. We're not piling and turning and doing all the scientific stuff to get it to hot compost. I cold compost. But even cold composting gets a few degrees warmer just by everything working in there. Well, by that going on here in this new system, by me dropping in seeds, these plants think it's spring. It doesn't matter what the air's like. We're not freezing. We're cold. You know, we get into the 50 degrees. We've even had a while back when I started in the upper 40s, but the plants don't know that because their roots, their feet are warm. So they just took off. That's why we have so much growing. Now let's walk over to the wall and I'll explain something. Now keep one thing in mind. Remember this because I'm taking a walk. I planted a few zucchini in here. I even still have the marker. Tomatoes that got squished in here. And these are seeds that took forever to sprout. Well, when I say forever, it took longer than it should, but some of them did start to sprout, I saw today. So I'm going to get these in. I might get them all in. See, they're kind of an odd tail. I'm going to get them all in since they haven't and I'll move them if they see. I'm going to put one of each here. If they start to sprout, I'll move them. Now, because birds love sprouted seed, push this down a little bit. Nobody's getting my seed. So now it's covered, and we will keep an eye on this. And hopefully, in a few days, I'll have those two, and hopefully the other ones will grow too, and I'll move them to where I want them. See? The paper's disappeared, but my beautiful steak that I made from tote lids have not. There were two that came up in here. And it was getting so massive so fast with all the tomatoes that I literally the other day grabbed the zucchini and pulled it out. I've decided I'm going to take a chance. It's a big chance. But I'm going to pull one of these zucchinis out. I'm going to move it. It's just too many in one. And let's see if we can move it. Oh! I think we can. Oh, look at that. Let me grab a bucket. And I'll fill that with some potting soil or something. We're going to get this moved into a better home. So before I fill that hole with potting soil, you know how I am. I'm going to put some chopped up leaves. This is where the deer kind of chewed up my broccoli. I don't need all this. Let me move this. That's got nothing in it anyway. I'm going to bury some leaves in the hole because that's going to add extra nutrition for everything since I already disrupted it so much. Now I'm going to add a little potting soil and then I'll water it in a little bit later. It's very damp, so we're okay. And now I've got one zucchini in this thing with all these tomatoes until I figure out what I'm going to do with all my tomato plants. Small amount of roots came with it, good enough for me. And I moved it. Now let's go take a walk. Oh, look at a little wren. My daughter came over and she said, "What are you doing? You're not watering your plants? It looks so bad." I said, "What do you mean I'm not watering?" She said, "Look at it. Your whole zucchini here, your whole squash plant is on its side. It looks terrible." I said, "No, I just moved it. Sure, it looks bad. Look how big this is. Of course it looks bad." But I told her, I know what I'm doing, I think, and I'm going to leave it alone. Because what I wanted it to do was to start to create a root system again here because I left such a small amount of roots. I watered it really well. Very simple. Give it a really good watering. And going, you can't move such a big plant. Now, normally you can't, but I really don't have a choice. Probably water it now and come back later. see if it needs a little extra water. It's not too warm today. I want to make sure that it starts sending out more feeder roots and water roots. See if we can get this beautiful zucchini grow here, and we'll keep an eye on it. Cool. And planted it in this tote, and I let the leaves do their thing no matter how bad they look. I will be trimming them soon. The reason I didn't trim them, this is just my thought, is when you trim these off, they're hollow inside. And yes, you can go all the way to the trunk, but I didn't want to go that close to the roots. I wanted to leave it alone. So I left it alone. I let it start to develop a root system, which it did right away, and it's doing fantastic. Now I'll come back, maybe in a few days and start trimming back the bad leaves, but I'm going to leave it right now. See how big that is? Now let me explain something on all these totes here. You saw them last year. If you see any of the garden tours, we grew massive squash. All kinds of squash was growing in here. And then I let them sit all winter. Now instead of dumping out anything, because I'm not into all that hard labor, you can, I didn't want to. I refurbished all these totes. I kept what was in there, which was a lot of earthworms and different things, and I built on top, because soil that you create, like nature, is going to collapse. As critters munch it, the plants pull from it, what you had closer to the top will come down. But all I did here was I refurbished. I put in more branches, smaller ones, because I didn't want to load it up. It's already got the branches on the bottom, or it had it. They broke down. And everything drained here so well. That's why I didn't tip anything. There was one that didn't because of some roots from the trees got in there. So I had to take that one apart a little bit. And I had to unblock the holes from the roots. But what I did here was I put in leaves, different things around the yard I found. I did put kitchen scraps in it. And I did actually top it with some broken down wood chips, and some of them I topped with potting soil. Now, of course, if you're doing this, you can start all fresh if you want. You could dump it all out, mix it all together, and start all over if you want. I didn't want to do it. There's so many different ways of doing it. So let's walk through here. Okay. So that's scallop squash. I got that from my daughter. It's doing okay. This one's not doing too bad. Let's move this top I made from a tote lid. It's starting to take off. This one I just put out, so we can't talk about that. Put that out actually yesterday. It's in the paper cup. This is my paper cup system. The bottom has been totally popped out, so the roots will go straight in there and the cup will fall apart. Here's another gray squash. They are taking off. They are taking off. But if you notice, they're nowhere near as big as what's growing in my rainbow garden. And that's because it's not getting the same warmth. Though it's getting warm from the wall, and the cement blocks stay warm, the roots are not going to get that maybe 2 or 3 degrees warmer as the rainbow garden's getting. So if you want to get a jump start, you would start in fresh totes. You would empty the totes or get new totes, start all over. Don't ever throw this soil away. All this soil is valuable because we made it. We made it out of leaves, at least I did. But what I am doing now is I am making nurseries. I'm going to start squishing tomatoes in there that I like. I'm going to put some pepper seeds I saved from last year. All my seeds that didn't cost me anything is what I'm going to do. I'm going to push them into the soil, water it, forget about it, label them, and then come back and move the ones I want to move. Now, when you buy seeds and they're expensive, you want to cater to those differently. But when you've got stuff saved and you've got hundreds of seeds, you can actually sprinkle them in a tote like this once it's set up. And then you can cater to it that way and then move them. Because plants at a very young stage, if you're gentle with them, move very easily. Peppers move easily. You can separate them. Tomatoes move easily. Remember, you can cut a tomato, a cutting, and then you can root it. Well, that's why, I'm just saying that's why it's so easy to move certain plants. You could do that with whatever seeds you collected, a whole bunch of Swiss chard, throw them in there and collect the best plants out of there. You'll get a jump start. And then at the end, when you're done collecting your seeds, leave what's ever growing in there and let it grow, just as it would any other tote. So that's why I wanted to show you why this one is so big. Only because I put it in there big. And now it's going to make a fabulous comeback. And as our weather warms, everything here is going to take off. You're going to come back in about a month, and everything's going to be big. Everything. Now, the tomato plant is from last year, and that's fine, but everything else, except for, you know, the garlic chives, I just kind of moved those out. I layer everything because that also creates a slight amount of heat, as well as places for your earthworms to live. They like going under things, but they do go under pots. They travel around. So this is the way I was doing things. Just wanted to tell you, if you want to get a jump start, go ahead, set up a tote. Now, if you don't have leaves and stuff, you can set up a tote in a warm area and do the same thing. But really, leaves, green leaves and brown leaves mixed together creates heat. And you could set up your own little ecosystem to get your seeds and your plant started. Again, do your free seeds, do the cheap seeds, and then move them where you want, and do your more expensive seeds that you buy differently. And I think you're really going to have a lot of fun doing this. I am. So with that, oh, see, here's another one. I actually just moved this out. I grew this from seed in the house. It's another delicious tomato. I'm catering it. See, I put this here because it was leaning. I put that there. Put some rocks around here, just kind of to hold some moisture around it. This is just a walking onion I had. And the reason I'm catering to it is I had those seeds for 11 years and they grew. So the plants don't look as good as the others, probably weaker seeds, but we'll see what happens. I'll cater to it. So just a thought, if you want to get started in case your planting season doesn't start yet, but you're just starting to warm up, you can start your free seeds that you collected, sprinkle some in, label them, sprinkle them in a corner. So let's say you want to do some tomatoes here. Put a label, put some tomatoes there. Peppers here, something else here, Swiss chard there. Label them and water them gently. Don't take a hose and blast it or you'll be moving your seeds all over. Water them gently. Watch what grows. Move the ones out that you want. And you know, worst comes to worst, you can compost if you end up with too much, right back in and plant in it later. So I hope I gave you some thoughts. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. I'm getting back to work. I want to clean up that mess over there. And I want to get all this done too. So have a great day and don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye, everybody.